could have had a pretty close encounter there if I hadn't held you back just then, you little minx. That line was horrifying. Hello there, Pixies. Today I am going to be reading you chapter 3 of my old Harry Potter fanfiction, Severed Ties. I wrote it on Wattpad. This is the unedited version. I have been rewriting it as I've been reading this through and being like, okay, let's edit this thing, because I was 17. It was terrible. I would suggest, if you have not seen the first 2 chapters, go ahead, look in the cards, whichever way they are. I'm just going to put both hands up. Yeah. Go look in the cards for the playlist and you can watch that from the start so that you're all caught up. But without further ado, because this is probably going to be a long video, let's just get into this story once more. Chapter 3, Regulus Black. The next few weeks seemed to pass in a flurry of ink and parchment. Although she had only just started the term, already Imelda was up to her eyebrows in work. Her newest lesson were no exception. In divination, they were already expected to make complex predictions using tea leaves. Professor Sinistra had complimented her on possessing, as she put it, the sight beyond the physical world and into the spiritual realms, which Imelda thought was all very well, but the excessive homework was not necessary. Okay, before I go on with this, I would just like to know, because I've completely blanked, does anybody know whether Professor Trelawney was teaching divination whilst the Marauders were at school, or whether it was someone else? I have put Professor Sinistra, but honestly that was just me winging it because I didn't know whether Trelawney was teaching there. So if you do know, please put that down in the comments. In Muggle studies, she had to study endless diagrams of Muggles carrying heavy crates without the aid of magic, and label diagrams of electric toasters, which even she found monotonous after the 3rd time. Dude, I would find it monotonous after the 1st time. Honestly, electric toasters are not that interesting. Come on, you guys. Care of magical creatures was by far the most boring lesson at the moment, even topping history of magic. Professor Kettleburn insisted on starting off small, which in this case meant endlessly feeding lettuce to a bunch of flubberworms and occasionally milking them. Has anybody ever milked a worm? Because I haven't. I don't even know if you can. That is another question I have. You don't have to answer this one, but does anybody know if you can milk a worm? At present, Imelda was making her way to the library on her own, as Lily had ancient runes at the moment. Just as she turned a corner, she was greeted by a jeering, floating figure wearing a bright orange revolving bow tie and a belled hat. It was Peeves, the poltergeist, and he pulled at her hair, cackling wickedly. "You're not an ickle-thirsty, are you?" My Peeves is just, I don't even know what that was. "No, Peeves, now let go of my hair and get lost, will you?" she said irritably. "Ooh, temper, temper," he said as he followed her relentlessly, even as she started to stride. Peeves continued to cackle as she outran him, and with good reason too. She was so wound up that she wasn't really looking where she was going. Oh, what a cliche. And she walked head first into Sirius Black. He was just as taken aback as she was, and he put both arms out to stop her from knocking him over. "Bloody hell, are you trying to scare me to death? Next time watch where you're going." Imelda flushed angrily. "Well, excuse me, Sirius Black. I didn't mean to bash into you with such a force. There's no need to be so rude." She trailed off slowly as she caught a glimpse of his deep grey eyes. They looked very odd, as if he'd been trying to hold back tears before she had startled him. Come to think of it, she had never seen him apart from James before, and this was quite odd behaviour for him. Are you all right, Sirius?" she began to ask tentatively. He gave her a sharp look and began to turn away from her. But then he seemed to have a sudden change of heart. "It's my brother. He's given me hell," he said uncomfortably. "Brother? You mean Regulus? You've never met him. He's a 2nd year, and he just loves tormenting me about bringing shame to the family name by being sorted into Gryffindor. As if I don't get enough of that at home," he growled to himself, almost dog-like. Imelda immediately felt a fountain of sympathy for Sirius, but she couldn't understand why he didn't stand up to his younger brother. Well, you're older than him, aren't you? Stand up to him. Sirius became frustrated again. That would be very simple if my parents weren't pure-blood fanatics too, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, they hate me just as much as he does, and even the house elf creature despises my guts. Imelda didn't really know what to say to this. Oh, I'm sorry, Sirius. Sirius' face softened slightly, and he turned to leave in the opposite direction, where he'd just come from. Just get lost, will you? And watch where you're going. We could have had a pretty close encounter there if I hadn't held you back just then, you little minx. That line was horrifying. Imelda rolled her eyes and decided to forgive him just this once given the circumstances, and headed off to the library, looking back at Sirius' dark, short, black, wavy hair and extremely scruffy uniform, with a small smile on her face. Oh, Imelda's got the feels! Imelda's got the feels, everybody! So sweet. Madam Pince, the librarian, looked extremely annoyed as Imelda entered the library asking to borrow Quidditch Through the Ages by Kenilworthy Wisp for at least the 4th time in 2 years. Miss Doherty, I suggest you purchase your own copy in Flourish and Blots the next time you're there. Or perhaps in Hogsmeade Village when I can finally be rid of you for a day. Very harsh. Imelda had a good reason for borrowing it this time round. She wanted to learn as many tricks as possible for chasers, as she was a chaser on the Gryffindor Quidditch team alongside James Potter, and their first practice of the year in 2 days' time to prepare for the first match of the season, which she and the others were determined to win. What kind of sentence was that? Can I reread that? Because I don't even think I know what that said. Okay, where was I? She wanted to learn as many tricks as possible for chasers, as she was a chaser on the Gryffindor Quidditch team alongside James Potter, and their first practice of the year in 2 days' time to prepare for the first match of the season, which she and the others were determined to win. This is why you don't write stories and not edit them. That was not a sentence I am proud of. Moving on. She found the most comfortable seat in the library, settled herself in, and immersed herself in the book. After several minutes of reading and taking notes on a piece of parchment, Imelda decided to look up and rest her eyes for a moment. As she did, she saw a pair of beautiful grey eyes watching her from close by, with an expression of suspicion and inquisitiveness. Sirius? She asked, unsure of herself. Hardly, the voice replied, sounding offended at the comparison. I can barely believe we're related, actually. Are you a friend of his? Imelda realised that this must be Regulus, and as he stepped into the light, her suspicion had been confirmed. He had the same handsome features as his brother, although his good looks were younger than Sirius's and less defined. The same dark hair, which was longer than his brother's shoulder-length hair, and of course, the same stunning, fathomless grey eyes, which she had mistakenly thought were Sirius's. Actually, yes, I am, and I hear you've been giving him grief, she replied, taking the opportunity to tell him what she thought in her stride. What's it to you? He snapped, with an interrogational tone. No matter how pig-headed he can be, he's my friend, and I won't accept you making him feel like a blood traitor. He's no lesser than you, just because he doesn't believe in all that pure-blood supremacy rubbish. Regulus' eyes flashed viciously, and he said, with a dangerous hiss, How dare you call pure-blood supremacy rubbish? I bet you're one of the purebloods that will run off with a filthy mudblood, no doubt. Didn't your mother teach you not to mix with filth like what they're letting into this school? It's ridiculous. Why, when my great-grandfather Phineas Nigellus was a headmaster, this would never have been acceptable. Imelda knew he was trying to threaten her, but she stood her ground. She was not going to be intimidated by a snotty, arrogant 12-year-old boy. I just want to say that reading that was really horrible. Regulus is something else, like, oh, that was uncomfortable. I guess I wrote it well, but, oh, yeah, it was uncomfortable. But that's the point, I think, so I wouldn't say it's bad, He's just a little piece of work at this point, you know? Let me ask you a question, Regulus Black. Do you really believe in pureblood supremacy? Or are you just pleasing mummykins and daddykins? Regulus' face turned the colour of sour milk, with an expression to match. Then he relaxed slightly, and took in every detail of her face, as if he was taking a mental photograph for safekeeping. I see you're not a coward like my brother. I wouldn't get too attached to him if I were you. You're far too good for him. You could make a great Death Eater if you weren't so stubborn. Mother says a strong will is what is needed to impress the Dark Lord, but I doubt you'll go down that path. His tone was almost conversational. You're damn right I won't, she replied, raising her voice to slightly more than a whisper, as he stalked off down the potions aisle. Strangely enough, Imelda did not feel as though she should dislike Regulus at all. She knew that 12 was still an impressionable age, and that he didn't really know what he believed in, only what he'd been brought up with. After all, Sirius was not like the rest of his family. For one, he was in Gryffindor, and completely opposed to the dark arts. Imelda thought that with a little bit of help, Regulus could be shown down the right path. Oh yeah, it's that cliche of, I can change the bad boy. The thing is, though, you can't, okay? Like, it's a thing, it's a trope, especially in Wattpad romance stories, that the good girl always feels like she can change the bad boy. But people can't change other people unless they want to change. And that is something that I wish that I'd put more in this story maybe. But at the same time, I was 17, so what did I know? Okay, here's my Professor McGonagall impression coming up. 1, 2, 3, Feraverto, McGonagall said with a swish of her wand. The garden rat she had set on the table turned into a small goblet. Imelda's mind was elsewhere as she idly watched McGonagall perform the spell. Remus had looked very ill for a while. His skin was extremely pale, and he seemed to be frequently skipping classes and going to the hospital wing. I wonder why. She glanced over at this desk to see that nothing had changed. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was pale, and there was a large scar running down his left eye. It troubled her to see this, but she couldn't get a conversation out of him. At the end of the lesson, after successfully transfiguring her rat into a goblet, she caught up with him. Hi, Remus. You were excellent at transfiguring that rat. It was far better than mine. Remus gave a weak smile and said, Thanks, Imelda. I thought you did very well, though. Listen, I'd love to talk more, but I have to go to, another class, and I don't want to be late. He started to turn away, but Imelda was determined to spend more time with him. Remus, wait. Before you go, would you like to come and watch Quidditch tryouts tomorrow? I mean, I think you'd like it. Just to support us all, you know. He nodded resignedly and walked off in a hurry. Oh, Remus. We all understand what you're going through. Don't worry too much about him. He's fine, honestly, came the small, vehement voice of Peter Pettigrew from behind her. Of course. Just that he's a filthy hybrid, that's all. Regulus Black said, also from behind her. A few Slytherins sniggered nastily. What do you mean, hybrid, Black? Imelda snapped questioningly. A sly, slightly malicious smile came across his face at this. Ooh, didn't he tell you, my dear pig-headed brother, I mean? I told you not to get too attached to him, didn't I? Haven't you wondered why your little friend's been looking so peaky and how he got that nasty scar across his face, Well, I'll leave my older brother to give you the bloodthirsty details, shall I? Have a nice day, won't you, Doherty? Ugh, he's so mean. As Regulus and the other Slytherins started to walk down the corridor, Imelda turned inquiringly towards Peter, who looked positively terrified, his eyes watering uncontrollably. I'm sorry, Imelda. I can't tell you. You'll have to ask Sirius or James. She turned on her heels and ran to catch up with Regulus. Wait. Tell me what you know, Black. Regulus grinned. Oh, no. I'd much rather your friends tell you. Imelda flushed angrily. Why is she always flushing? She's not a toilet. Well, anyway, you know full well they won't tell me anything if I ask them. I wouldn't say that till you've tried it. What Regulus said that afternoon played on Imelda's mind for the rest of the day. She never told Lily what had happened, although they had never officially stated it. The Marauders were close friends with Imelda, and she did not like to think that they, especially Sirius, were keeping secrets from her. At that moment, James and Sirius entered the common room, talking about one of Sirius's latest pranks directed at Filch the caretaker. "All right there, Imelda?" James asked as he flopped into a seat next to her, and Sirius took the seat by the fire. She gave them the cold shoulder. James looked puzzled, and Sirius just rolled his eyes while Lily was plaiting Imelda's hair idly. "What did we do this time, Doherty?" Sirius asked. Imelda glared at him, and then spat. "It's not what you did. It's the exact opposite. It's what you didn't do. Where's Remus?" James and Sirius shared a nervous glance. "I don't know, in the dormitory, reading or something. What's it to you anyway?" Imelda was heating up now. "You know full well he's not in the dormitory. Why lie to me, James?" "Sirius?" Lily chipped in now. "She's right. Remus has been acting strange these days. Sort of cagey." James gave Sirius a resigned look and then said, "We didn't want to worry you. Remus is really ill. He's got dragonpox. Really, really bad dragonpox, and..." Imelda interrupted him. "He doesn't have dragonpox, James, and you know it. Your brother," she pointed to Sirius, "said that Remus was a filthy hybrid. Now why would he say that if there was no truth to it?" Sirius piped up. "You're going to believe something my snake of a brother said about over me? Thanks, Imelda, for being such a great friend after I confided in you today." By this point, the entire common room was watching. "Yeah, well, you two are just as great friends for lying to us. If you won't tell me what's going on, I'll find out for myself." Imelda stormed off, flooding tears as she headed for the portrait hole. Sirius watched her fuming. Lily looked startled, and James shooed the growing audience awkwardly. You can all go back to your knitting now." That is like the most awkward way to diffuse tension, is to just go, "Hey, it's all right, nothing to see here, go back to your knitting." But I believe I got that as a reference from like Fred and George in one of the films. I think it was actually Goblet of Fire. Who knows? It was very strained between Imelda and the Marauders over the next week or so, especially Sirius. Imelda would try several ways to avoid sitting next to Sirius in potions, and was particularly spiteful towards him in DADA lessons. Lily reassured on several occasions that James, Sirius and Peter wouldn't keep a secret from them unless it was absolutely necessary. But Imelda wasn't listening. Sirius was especially wound up about the argument. As far as he was concerned, Imelda had betrayed his friendship by believing Regulus over him, and nothing James could say would make him see sense. She was just being a friend to Moony. She wasn't in the wrong for caring and hearing rumours and naturally being curious, Padfoot. Give her a bit of a break. I'm not giving her a break, so shut up, James. James resigned, but said, "Don't you think it would be good for Remus to have someone else other than us to talk to? I mean, we are guys. We're not really known for being very sensitive." Sirius just glared at him and retorted, "Remus made us promise not to tell anyone. Why should they be any exception? Especially after what she did. Think how differently they'll treat him if they find out what he is. Even Dumbledore made us swear not to tell." James looked stunned. "You honestly believe they could be that shallow? They'll accept him for what he is. Especially Lily." "You're such an idiot, mate," said Sirius, as James started to daydream about Lily. Okay, so this chapter... it's kind of a mess. I don't really like this chapter now that I read it back. I like the way I've edited it now, but I just don't like it. And I would not blame you for not liking it too, but the best thing about this is that you don't have to like it because, as I've said, this was an old story that is completely unedited, and so it's nice to look back and go, hey, I don't like this, and I'm able to criticise it. And also, I see the good parts too. The thing I did like about this chapter was I like the way I wrote Regulus, kind of. He's awful, he's mean, he's horrible, but I guess that makes sense for who he is at this point in his life. So as much as this chapter's a bit all over the place and I don't really like it, I can see the merits of it, and I still don't think it's as bad as it could have been. If you did like this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button for more Harry Potter videos, and I will see you next time, my dears. Goodbye!